The partition of Ireland in 1922 resulted in the rise of a large smuggling trade between Northern Ireland and what was then named the Irish Free State. Newspaper reports from as far back as 1923 detail how people from both sides would regularly cross the border in order to purchase commodities at a lower rate or to sell their produce where it would fetch a higher price. Since this was classed as trade between two separate states, tariffs were placed on goods in order to protect domestic business in each country. Undeterred by this, thousands of cross-border traders would flood over the divide each year, attempting to smuggle their goods in and out so as to avoid paying the tariffs. Tasked with stopping them were the customs officers. One such officer was McLaughlin. He worked at the customs checkpoint in the village of Muff from November 1981 until 1992, when the European single market came into effect. He is pictured here locking up the customs office permanently on the last day of December 1992.
Well, it was difficult to tell how often people were smuggling, because the whole idea of smuggling is that you don't declare it to people. But we used to estimate that we probably caught or stopped or prevented maybe up to 30% of people who were intent on moving stuff. We probably caught red-handed less than 10%, I'd say, because it was haphazard. You could decide to examine every vehicle, and if you were good at your job, the chances are you would have discovered anything that was hidden. But you would have had a queue back to the British Army. Had a checkpoint a mile and a half up the road. If you had a queue up to there, by the time they got to you, they were pretty irate. One of the items that was a favourite for smuggling was alcohol. The other items that I suppose people smuggled were white goods, fridges, freezers, washing machines, that type of thing, televisions, hi-fi. All of those items were, there was a big discrepancy in the VAT charged in the Republic versus the North, and therefore it made sense for people to go across. Even when sterling was at 15 or 20% of a premium to the punt, as it was then, it made sense for people to go across, change their money and buy the item and smuggle it across. I suppose there was a fair bit of routine stuff to the job as well. It wasn't that you were dealing with smugglers all the time, but I suppose you were dealing with potential smugglers all the time. Donegal is practically cut off from the rest of the Republic, and a lot of goods has to travel through the north to get to the ports. So there was a system of sealing vehicles with goods. The papers would be filled out to record the details of the goods, details of the vehicle, and the driver usually would sign it, and then you put a lead seal on each of the access points. And when that vehicle travelled through the north to, generally it would have been Auchnacloy, then the customs officer at that side would have removed the seal and checked that the vehicle was the same and that the goods were the same. So those sort of routine duties probably weren't as exciting as some of the tales that you hear about of people, being dropped off up on mountainsides and digging in like the SAS and reporting back on the activities of smugglers. I've left the job now almost 19 years, and I still meet people who will tell me stories about the fellow who was smuggling wheelbarrows every day, and the customs officer would always take the fork or the grip and empty out the dung that was in the wheelbarrow to look for stuff that was underneath. And it was only after he retired and the smuggler had retired that he was told that it was the wheelbarrow that was being smuggled. But I think some of those stories gain lives of their own,